Your Creative Force by Avianne is currently available on Global Voice Radio.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a fire. Broadcasting from the San Francisco Bay Area, the all-new all-hit show on creativity. Hosted by international award-winning artist and entrepreneur, Avianne. You're listening to Your Creative Force. And now here's your host, Avianne.
Hi everyone, this is Avianne, once again coming to you from the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area in California, the USA. Today's topic is really something that hits me close to home because it's something I have lived through myself and something I really need to watch out for in my business because it can creep up on you and it can kind of make your business journey very hard at times. It can make it harder than it needs to be. And so I am here today to discuss with you guys the topic of what I call endurance fatigue. Our show theme for Your Creative Force Ep-016 today is overcoming endurance fatigue. Endurance fatigue is not just about burnout. It goes a little beyond just the things that you would experience if you're heading for burnout. So we're going to clarify it and we're going to dive a little bit deeper today into this topic. So to start off with, even the most zealous and passionate business owners and entrepreneurs get tired, frustrated, or discouraged at times. In this episode, I want to address with you guys what I call endurance fatigue. Especially when we have been walking our business walk for a while, we can find ourselves at times fighting battles we didn't foresee, facing obstacles that seem insurmountable, lacking the time to truly put our energy in the right places and reaching plateaus. We can become overwhelmed or disheartened, and it can cause us to ultimately make decisions that harm our journey because we aren't operating out of the passion, authenticity, and joy of our creative force any longer. Instead, we feel like we are just slugging it out endlessly with no rewards in sight. And I'm not just talking about money when I talk about rewards. You know that internal reward you feel when you're busy achieving your dreams? If you go into the mode of endurance fatigue and you stay there too long, you kind of lose that perspective. You lose that joy. And so it goes beyond just what's going on the financial side of the business. It also goes deeper to the emotional and the practical side of certain aspects of how you feel and how you think about your business. It really even can affect your mindset very, very negatively as an entrepreneur. So today I want to come alongside you in your journey with some helpful practical tips and tools with regards to overcoming this endurance fatigue. So this being part one of our show today, I am going to look first and foremost at what is endurance fatigue and how do we even recognize it? Because like I said in my introduction just now, endurance fatigue is something that can creep up on us. We may not realize that that is what happens to us. And the reason it creeps up on us is because especially if we're dealing with a new exciting opportunity, a new exciting client, a project that is challenging us, we're suddenly faced with something that is like putting sparkle into us, and it can make us really dive into our business and it can make us really become absorbed with what we're doing. But if we're not careful and we lose sight of the bigger picture, we can quickly start finding ourselves wrapped up in endless meetings or endless activities to try and make this thing work. And then in the end, if we're not looking at this soberly and objectively, whatever is coming into our business can actually lead to endurance fatigue and can bring us to a point where we don't even feel like we want to do our business anymore. And the very thing that we used to love and that used to inspire and motivate and drive us in life, that deep creativity creative thing that comes out of our creative force, our treasures and our beauty and our individual uniqueness and all these wonderful, juicy things that make us who we are as a business person and that bring a wonderful solution to the world that only we ourselves as individuals are capable of, all that starts fading away and we start feeling the drain, we start feeling the fatigue, we start feeling the pressure of just constantly being caught up in a rut. And that is absolutely a dream killer. That is absolutely poison. It is toxic to a business when the people in charge of the business, the people who are on the forefront of the business, blazing the trails, making the decisions, driving the vision, etc., if they become endurance fatigued, oh my gosh, it's really hard. It's hard to keep a business going. It's hard to still feel like your heart and your mind and your investment in any regard, whether it be financial or emotional, it's hard to know and to feel that those things are still really where you want them to be in your business. And you start really feeling like you're treading water, not going anywhere. So we want to talk about that a little bit. So what is endurance fatigue? And how do we recognize it? Endurance fatigue is what we experience when our dreams, visions, plans, and aspirations feel like they are becoming a nightmare to us instead of a joy. Endurance fatigue is getting so worn out by the process of building our entrepreneurial dreams or a good deal or taking part in a new opportunity that we start feeling discouraged and disillusioned. You will typically, if you're experiencing endurance fatigue, you will typically start thinking things along these lines. I'm just going to mention a few examples to you. You would start thinking things like, this is not what I signed up for. This is taking way too long and it is way too difficult. This is too much drama with difficult people and too many moving parts. Too much red tape, cash flow issues, and admin monsters. You start feeling like you're playing whack-a-mole. You take care of one thing and another thing pops up. You take care of one thing and another thing pops up. And you're putting so much energy, so much effort, so much stress toward dealing with the day-to-day operations of your business that you lose sight of the bigger picture. And none of it is what you want it to be anymore. It makes you really unhappy when you reach this point. Now, I want you to understand if this is happening to you, if you have ever experienced this, then today's show is going to provide you with wonderful tips and tools to prevent it in future. Okay? If you are in a place where you are experiencing this currently, we are going to get you through it, right? We're going to give you some advice that can help you, right? I'm not an expert in any specific area of these things like endurance fatigue or burnout, right? But I have lived it and I have developed some tools and strategies, some techniques, some tips that I practice myself to prevent myself from entering that zone again. I actually entered that zone recently, like in the last year or two. I started entering that zone at a point where I felt like I was just so overwhelmed. It was like, am I even being true to my dreams anymore? And I super had to recalibrate a lot of what I was doing and why I was doing it. And I actually got expert advice from the outside to help me to make sure that I am actually focusing on the right things and that I am actually not putting myself towards that place where I'm going to experience complete endurance fatigue that will lead to complete burnout, right? I had to take some steps back. So I am, as always, in my show, just being super real with you guys and giving you super real tips that I am living through myself, things I struggle with myself as a small business owner and a creative entrepreneur. And I feel these things can apply across the board. And I think it can even apply beyond just a business business environment. So I think this can be really helpful to you. Okay. So you start feeling like you're sinking faster than you can possibly ever swim. This is what happens when you're experiencing endurance fatigue in your business. You feel like you have lost sight of the shore and you have a hard time finding your way back. You start thinking that the month-to-month paycheck is looking pretty good again and that you just want to be free from the stress. You are having sleepless nights and you worry and overthink about everything. You feel like a dog chasing its tail to no end. Have you ever felt this way? So yes, if you ever felt this way or are feeling any of these things right now, I want you to know I'm not saying this to judge you or make you feel bad. I'm saying this because I can help you. There are ways that you can deal with this. There are ways that you can get through this, right? This isn't the end. This feels probably to you a lot worse than it really is in reality. So, if you do not sit down and address these things effectively, though, you will very soon find yourself burnt out. Your business will become to you like kryptonite and you will likely end up quitting altogether, because who wants to work in a business where they constantly feel stressed out to the point where they literally want to run away, right? Nobody wants, you don't want to work a job like that, and you certainly don't want to build your own business to be that way, because yes, then you can just as well go back to the paycheck to paycheck kind of job, and you will not have that much stress, and you will probably not be so unhappy, right? It starts sounding appealing to go back to that paycheck and not build your dreams anymore. It really does. It's easier. I can tell you, I've worked jobs before and I've done several entrepreneurial adventures throughout my adult life. And I can tell you, sometimes if your entrepreneurial journey gets really tough, it starts feeling like it may be a solution to just go and get a paycheck somewhere. I am glad that I know myself well enough to know that I cannot really do that, though. I think I would really struggle to go back to a normal 9-to-5 job, because I have become so absolutely inspired and enthused and impassioned by my entrepreneurial journey that I know even when I do experience endurance fatigue and have to work through some of that, I won't go back. But you know what? I have great understanding for people who feel like they just want to quit in the end because this is just too much. It's too much stress and you have to take care of your family. And you just have to not kill yourself with stress. I really get that. So if you're going through this or have gone through this, I don't want you to listen to this and feel bad about yourself. It's totally normal. I think a lot of people experience this in entrepreneurship, but they may be too ashamed to admit it, or they may be too prideful to admit it. They don't want to admit that they feel this way about their journey, right? So they keep up appearances and they keep being super motivational and positive on the forefront, but deep down, they just feel like they're sinking. So I want you to be honest with yourself and really feel and think through this thing and really analyze for yourself if this is something that you may be experiencing. Sometimes we can lie to ourselves, right? Sometimes we can tell ourselves that this isn't true, while this is totally true, totally something that we are actually feeling. Quitting may be the right thing to do under certain circumstances. Indeed, right? There are certain things that legitimately they are valid. And maybe if those things are what is going on, maybe you should quit, right? But the problem with endurance fatigue is that it will cloud your judgment. So if you're thinking you should quit your entrepreneurial journey, you're not going to know if that is the right thing to do or not, okay? And I can tell you, most of the time, even if you feel after going through what we're going through today, all the steps and the tips, even if after all this you still feel like you want to quit, normally the answer is not quitting your entrepreneurial journey. Normally the answer is you need to make adjustments, recalibrations to your journey. And that is not the same as quitting. You can walk away from one entrepreneurial pursuit and create another, or you can simply go on a sabbatical, or you can take a few steps back. We're going to look at all of that today, right? But if you are too emotionally, mentally, or physically exhausted to even think straight, you will not be in the right state of mind to soberly make such a decision. And if you quit without rationally considering all the facts, you may end up really regretting it, okay? So this is what I'm saying to you at this point, okay? If you experience this kind of endurance fatigue with your entrepreneurial journey, with building your business, if you're experiencing this to the point that it seriously, constantly makes you go back and forth between quitting your journey or not, you have to be really careful, okay? Because it may be true that you are stuck in a journey that's not going anywhere, and then you may need to recalibrate your journey and take another route. Okay, that's true. That may mean you quit this thing and start another thing. That may mean you quit and take a break. Whatever it looks like for you. But you can't make that judgment and just quit cold turkey without really thinking it through. If you've spent many years building this thing and you've actually shown growth and you've actually shown that you've been making good decisions and your business is in the black and things are actually not super bad if you just look at them objectively, then I don't personally think you should just quit. Maybe you can sell the business if that's really what you want to do, but I want people to think very carefully before they quit. And if you do quit, if you have quitted in the past, if you've quit a business before, just quickly, English is my second language, so if I ever get my tenses wrong, please bear with me. Okay, but if you ever quit a business in the past, okay, this is not to make you feel guilty. Sometimes we have to do that. I had 2 businesses that I started back in South Africa that I actually ended up quitting. One was because I took on a business partner, which ended up to be a huge mistake because this person had serious psychological problems. And I just thought that in the interest of everyone involved, I would rather quit that business and start something else on my own from scratch. So that was one time that I had to quit. And the other time I had to quit was I started a business, built it up. It was going great, but then I had to move to the United States. So I had to dismantle the business because it wasn't at a point where I felt I could really sell it. And the business was very much based upon my personal services and my personal input to clients. So I couldn't really hand it over to someone else to just represent me because I wasn't ready to do that at the time. But I got the word that I was accepted to actually come to the United States. And so I kind of had to dismantle the business. So those are 2 times when I actually personally, I had to quit my business because circumstances outside of my control just dictated that that was the best option. And you really need to know that that is the option you need to take when you need to take that option. There can come a time, right, where you have to decide, am I quitting this, am I selling this, or am I taking it to the next level? That is normal. It is not something that should freak you out. But what you do not want to do, this is what I'm telling you, is you do not want to make decisions like that based upon emotions. Okay? Any financial advisor will tell you that you do not make financial choices based upon emotions, right? Oh, I'm scared the world is going to end and now I'm suddenly going to sell all my investments and buy gold. That's probably not a great financial strategy, right? Is it wrong to buy gold? Absolutely not, but you have to do it for the right reasons, right? You have to base it on absolute facts. You cannot just out of the blue come up with all kinds of emotional reasons and then buy and sell and totally get yourself into a bad spot because you don't know what you're doing, right? The same goes for this. You've invested a lot of time. You've invested a lot of effort. You've invested a lot of emotional energy and passion into building this thing. So if the time comes when you need to make that decision, and you know what, I can guarantee you, every business owner that I know have from time to time come to that place, that kind of crossroads where they have to decide, do I quit this? Do I sell this? Or do I take this to the next level? And if you've decided to do any of the above, and you've made that decision rationally, and it was a good decision, and it was in your best interest and in the best interest of your business, then you know what? More power to you. I'm not going to judge you, and I think anyone judging you for that choice is kind of silly because it's ultimately your choice, right? So I want you to just be really clear on that. I'm not telling you to stay. I'm not telling you to quit. Nobody can tell you that in the end. That's your decision. But you need to make sure you're not basing your decision on the endurance fatigue or the burnout or the emotional roller coaster that you may be experiencing. Okay? Those are normal things to feel, but you cannot base massive decisions that impact your entire life and the lives of all your employees and your family. You can't do that based on such criteria, right? So there are certain signs that will tell you if you are experiencing endurance fatigue. This is how we actually recognize it. I'm going to name them. I've listed 12. There are probably like lots and lots of signs, but I think these 12 kind of sum it up. Like, I'm going to read this to you quickly. So I've written them down so I won't forget them. So these are the signs that will tell you if you're experiencing endurance fatigue. Number 1, you will feel constantly tired or beat up with regards to your business. Number 2, you struggle to focus on tasks and complete them. Number 3, you have this sinking feeling constantly that you fall terribly short in your business. Number 4, you start dropping the ball on important clients and projects. Number 5, you start becoming irritated and snappy with employees and clients more than usual. Everyone seems to be pushing your buttons, right? That's pretty big. Then number 6, you neglect other things and people who and what are important to you, including your family, right? If you're someone who used to take time away, spend with your family, or do things that really matter to you, you start neglecting those. That's a big sign. Number 7, you feel anxious and depressed. But not just from time to time, you start feeling like that all the time, okay? Number 8, you start feeling trapped in your business and not excited about it anymore. Number 9, you want to run away and you fantasize a lot about alone time. You just don't want to deal with people and anything anymore. You just keep thinking to yourself, all you want to do is go sit on an island in Hawaii and never come back. No, I have to tell you, I think every entrepreneur feels like that sometimes. I don't think any entrepreneur or every entrepreneur just feels constantly juiced up and ready to go and ready for liftoff in their business. I think we all get tired sometimes, and getting tired is normal. But when you start experiencing endurance fatigue, these things stick. They don't just feel like this from time to time. You don't just question yourself now and then. It starts becoming the norm. Okay, so when these signs of endurance fatigue become the norm, when you're experiencing 4 or more of these signs of endurance fatigue and they are becoming the norm for you, then you have a problem and you need to take a step back and you need to look at this, okay? I'm giving you these steps, by the way, just as a side note, so that you have something measurable to quantify this with, because when we're in it, when we're experiencing it, we actually don't always realize it. We really don't. It can creep up on us, like I say. So these are the signs that you need to watch out for that will definitely tell you if this is what you're experiencing, right? So number 7 was that you feel anxious and depressed all the time. Number 8 is that you feel trapped in your business and not excited about it anymore, right? Number 9, which is very important, is you want to run away and fantasize about alone time. And then number 10, okay? Are you ready for number 10? This is a new one. You feel extremely overwhelmed and underappreciated. You start, and you know what? I list these because these are things I've experienced before. About 2 years ago, I had number 10 creep up on me really badly, where I start feeling really overwhelmed and underappreciated. I was building my art academy bigger. The students were happy. Everything was going very well. Everything was going fantastic. Everything was, from the outside, looking smooth and wonderful. But I started feeling like I was losing myself in my academy. I keep giving awards to students for their excellent work. I keep putting myself out there. I was basically like driving myself crazy, putting together good lesson plans for my students and good material and good content. And I was just completely becoming burned out with it. So I took a step back and I started getting help in these areas, right? So anyway, number 11, you do not feel like you have any balance or downtime and you know you need it. Number 12, you start feeling paranoid and bothered by people and things in your business that never bothered you before. Like we said when we were talking about number 5, you actually start feeling like everyone and everything is pushing your buttons. So I'm quickly going to run through them again, and then we are going to conclude part 1. Signs that you're experiencing endurance fatigue. Number 1, you feel constantly tired or beat up. Number 2, you struggle to focus on tasks and complete them. Number 3, you have this sinking feeling that you fall terribly short in your business all the time. Number 4, you start dropping the ball on important clients and projects. Number 5, you start becoming irritated and snappy with employees and clients more than usual. Number 6, you neglect other things that are important to you, other things and people, including your family. You feel anxious and depressed most of the time. That was number 7. Number 8, you feel trapped in your business and not excited about it anymore. Number 9, you want to run away and fantasize about alone time. Number 10, you feel extremely overwhelmed and underappreciated. Number 11, you do not feel like you have any balance or downtime and you know you need it. Number 12, you start feeling paranoid and bothered by people and things in your business that never ever bothered you before. You suddenly see bad things around every corner. You see a demon behind every bush. You think people are out to get you. You don't see the positive stuff anymore, right? And that is very dangerous. That is going to discourage you faster than anything. So, with that, we are concluding part 1. And in part 2, we are going to take a look at how to prevent and overcome this endurance fatigue.
Catch the fire of creativity. Visit artbyavianne.com. Avianne. And now we return to our show with Avianne.
And we are back with part 2 of our show, Your Creative Force, episode 16 today. And our theme is overcoming endurance fatigue. So, now that we know what endurance fatigue is and the signs we have to look for to know that we're actually recognizing it in ourselves, right? We have to look at how to prevent and overcome it. Now, preventing endurance fatigue means that you first of all have to recognize it, right? So if you recognize these symptoms of, okay, I am experiencing these symptoms. I'm either already experiencing endurance fatigue or I'm heading in that direction. When you recognize that you're kind of in the beginning of your endurance fatigue, right? If you recognize those symptoms, those signs of endurance fatigue, the 12 signs we discussed in part 1 of our show, if you recognize those and you recognize them quickly when they're still in the beginning or when you're just starting to go in that direction, then you can usually prevent endurance fatigue from running its full course, because you can take the steps we're going to discuss now in part 2, and you can actually prevent yourself from going into full-blown endurance fatigue, right? But sometimes you can't recognize them, and by the time you realize that this is what's going on, you are already into full-blown endurance fatigue, and you just have a very hard time actually preventing it because it's already going too far. It's gone too far, right? Now you have to work through it. So the following are just ways that you can work through endurance fatigue when you're already experiencing it. But if you recognize the endurance fatigue in time, then you can actually prevent a lot of the pain points and a lot of the ongoing stress from absolutely overwhelming your process, right? So I want you to keep that in mind. So when you experience endurance fatigue, don't just summarily assume that you are failing. It's very important. We can start getting very negative and very hard on ourselves and feel like we're failing. You need to determine the reality of the situation before you take any further steps. That's why you can't make these choices about what to do next in your business based upon being in this place of endurance fatigue, because it's a vicious circle and it's going to be very hard for you to break the cycle unless you can take a step back, and you have to start with yourself. For me, over the years, I've learned to take a hard look at myself from time to time, and it's getting easier as I get further along on my journey. When I was younger, I was more defensive, I was more brutal, and I would probably have reacted to a lot of these things a lot more foolishly, and I'm sure I did. But it's not a bad thing to sometimes just be honest with yourself and take a hard look at yourself. And it's not because you want to beat yourself up or be super brutal to yourself. It's just because you are the source. You are the well of your business. You are the absolute source of this whole operation. And if you are toxic, then it means all the water that comes out of your well will be toxic. So if you don't start deep inside with yourself, you are actually going to become the problem. Whether you realize it or not, whether you're afraid to admit it or not, whether you beat yourself up or not even, you are going to become the main source of your problem. You are going to become your worst enemy if you are not willing to address these things and look at the reality of the situation before you make decisions. So if you are experiencing endurance fatigue, you do need to do these 3 things first, okay? And if you have good advice around you, if you can get a good coach, or you can get around a really good business advisor who can help you work this out, I'm sure they're going to, in some way, shape, or form, give you similar steps to follow. They may elaborate on it based on your specific situation. And if you really are going through a super bad patch of endurance fatigue, I do recommend that you do call in the help of a business coach or a trusted partner or someone that can actually help you work it out. Okay? So, first, when you are experiencing endurance fatigue, you have to understand the following. Preventing and overcoming endurance fatigue is a bit complex in a way, because each person is different. Not everyone has the same lifestyle, the same wiring, or the same circumstances. And you can never compare yourself completely to someone else. Remember that. So your first step in overcoming this needs to be to take a hard, realistic look at your lifestyle, your wiring, and your circumstances. Not your friend around the corner who has the similar business that you do, but yours, right? You can't superimpose your journey. Remember that. Your journey is unique, so you need to look at what is going on in your journey. Don't do the comparison game, because every person's journey is different. Just because your friend is succeeding at certain things in their similar business than yours doesn't mean that you are failing if you're not. They may be not succeeding in other areas that you are actually succeeding in. You just don't know about it. Realize that. So comparing yourself and your journey and your fears and your failures and your fatigue to other people's is futile, because it's not the same thing. Realize that and recognize that, and then stop beating yourself up by comparing yourself to people, right? You may need to discuss this with a trusted friend or confidant who can help you take a very sober look at these aspects of your life. You need to ask yourself good questions like, is your lifestyle adding to your stress? Are you the one who is actually placing yourself in this situation of constantly going through this endurance fatigue, right? You have to ask yourself that question, Because how much stress and fatigue can you handle? Some people can handle a lot. Others, like me, we need to pace ourselves to not take on more than we can handle. I can handle more stress than the average person just because of things that have happened to me in my life and things I've had to do and go through and bite the bullet for in my business before. I know already that I can handle more stress than many people, but I also know I have my limits. And when we were discussing in one of our previous shows about the different levels of an entrepreneur, that's why I tell you I'm probably mostly a level 2, maybe in some aspects of my business a level 3 entrepreneur. But I told you then I know I'm not a level 4 entrepreneur because I could probably not handle the stress of a level 4 entrepreneur. I don't know how I would deal with the stress of running a multinational giant corporation of some sort of kind that is like worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. Maybe I will one day. I don't know, right? I'm leaving my journey open for interpretation, open for growth. But I know that if I had to go to that level of entrepreneurship, I would need a lot of help. I would need a lot of support. I would need a lot of great people working for me who I can delegate to, because if myself and I had to handle that level of stress, I know I'm not wired for it. And I'm going to get myself in a huge bad situation if I had to go there too fast and too much on my own mission. I have to build my business slow and sure and in a way that I really feel I can handle things, right? And that's fine. Don't let people tell you because XYZ built this and that and did this and that and achieved such and such that you have to do the same thing. You don't, okay? You just have to be true to your journey. And everyone's journey is different, and that's 100% okay. But you have to be honest with yourself. Ask yourself these questions. Are there circumstances that are contributing to your endurance fatigue? Are there people who are contributing to your endurance fatigue? Endurance fatigue results in stress, and it can be worsened by circumstances outside of your control. Things like a sickness, a divorce, or a big family crisis, etc., can all make it worse. So then you have to ask yourself, can you change the circumstances, or do you need to let it play out? Are you taking on too many responsibilities in your business? And if you need to delegate more or take a step back from things to deal with stressful personal situations, then those are doable steps and you probably don't need to quit. Okay? Sometimes it's not a matter of quitting, and I think most of the time it's actually a matter of not quitting, but about recalibrating, taking steps back, maybe even selling the business at that point. But quitting is only when you really can't do it another way, okay? And then it's okay, but then you know you made the right decision, right? So, number 2. You need to determine the financial side of things. If your business is underwater and has been underwater for some time, it may be the right choice to either quit or accept an investment. You should have a financial advisor for your business and a great accountant who can help you decide about the financial side of things. Can a new business plan salvage things, or is it time to walk away? Or should you sell? In the end, only you can answer this question. But I would gather a lot of data before I make a choice like that. I would want to know what my business is worth. I would want to know if any financial issues can be dealt with. I would certainly want to know what my financial advisor and my accountant think about all of this. Okay? So the financial side of things are very, very important. Then number 3, you need to determine if you still really want to do this business or not. Weigh the pros and the cons, even list them if you have to. Speak with trusted advisors and your family. Decide if the pros and cons are truly worth it to you any longer. Remember that you do always pay a price for everything you decide to do in your life. So you have to make sure that the cons are worth the pros for you in the end. Only you can ultimately make the ultimately make this decision. But if you have a family, you absolutely have to consider that in your decision making, right? You are not an island if you have a family. So then, once you have looked at these three aspects of your endurance fatigue, you've taken a hard look at the reality of the situation, you determined the financial side of things and if you need a new business plan or not. And number three, you have determined if you still really wanted to do this business or not, right? Once you've done these three things, and you have a little bit more clarity on these things, you will probably find yourself feeling like you're at a crossroads, and you will either have to admit that you need to walk away from this or sell it, or you will need to decide that you have to tackle the situation head on. And by that, I don't mean doing more work, more actual work to fix the problem. See, and this is something that if you are someone who's kind of a workaholic or you're really into your entrepreneurial journey, you may automatically go into work mode. You may automatically have the response that if you're facing these things in your business, this endurance fatigue, and you've looked at these three things, now you're going to want to do more work to fix them. Okay. But it's kind of counterproductive. You can't just fix this problem by working harder and harder and harder. That is not going to fix the problem. So you have to understand that. What you need to do, I've kind of summarized for you in a few steps. I've written down 5 steps here that I'm going to go through with you guys. Are you ready? So, you don't have to do more work to fix the problem, but you have to look at these 5 things. 1. You will need to take an even bigger step back. You are experiencing some symptoms of burnout probably already, and you are heading for trouble if you don't address this. If you cannot leave for a vacation, you need to cut your business hours shorter, and at all cost, you need to take at least 1 full day completely off from your business every week. It will seem counterproductive to you. I'm warning you. You're not going to like doing this initially. You're going to worry initially. But you have to cut back on your hours that you work in this business. Not by not doing the work, right? The work still needs to get done. So you need to delegate the work, or you need to adjust your projects, or whatever you can do to cut back on your hours. But the first step for you would be to cut back on your hours. Even if it's just half an hour or an hour every day that you work less, for starters, right? You need to do that. And then 1 day of a week, you need to take your mind off things. You need to completely rest for at least 1 day every week, okay? Something on that day that you must do is you have to do something that completely takes your mind off of the business. That day, on that day specifically, when you're taking off from your business, you don't talk about your business, you don't think about your business, you don't go to your business, you don't work on your business, you do something completely different, something to completely take your mind off everything. You go hike in the mountains, or you binge watch your favorite TV shows. You go see your kid play soccer, or you go fishing with your buddies. I don't care what it is, but trust me, it's going to help you. Whatever you feel will relax you and will enhance your life. If you have to postpone some projects, I promise you the world will not end if you do that. See, if you take some time to actually rest and recuperate, you may find yourself already busy overcoming some of this endurance fatigue. Just because you're more restful and at peace, it will enable you to think with more clarity and act with more passion. It really is true. Your brain needs a break. Okay? If you're experiencing this, your brain and your soul need a break from your business. Number 2, you will need to sleep and exercise a little more. Because sleep and exercise will increase your capacity to handle stress better. We know that eating well and sleeping well and exercising, all these things, they actually help your body cope with the stress, right? Exercise releases endorphins in your brain, which makes you feel happier and makes you feel more motivated, okay? So create a calm environment before bedtime. Progressively go to bed early and start walking more or going to the gym more. You do not have to suddenly become a bodybuilder or a fitness fanatic, but you can walk, okay? I have a friend who has a very, very stressful job. She's a very high-level person at her company. She has a very, very stressful job because her job is based on, it's a science-type job, and she does research, and it's very stressful, and she cannot afford to make mistakes, but she has to work very long hours, okay? And she does really well at her job, but in order for her to cope with her job, for her to focus on her job, she needs to take a good long walk every day after she gets home from work so that she can get rid of the stress, walk it off, and so that she can help her body to relax and to exercise and to get those endorphins going so that she can actually handle all that, right? And so that has helped her a lot. So you don't have to do something super crazy, but you just have to do something. I feel like I run around and my job is very physical. So usually by the time that I get home, that I get to go home, I am usually physically very tired and I just want to relax. So I don't really do super much in terms of extra physical activity. My job is already pretty physical. If you've ever done a lot of art and painted a lot and stood on your feet a lot and picked up heavy things all the time and moved easels around and moved tables around and set up classrooms, and that's all very physical. So that's what I do physically for the most time. But if I feel like I need some activity, I do take a walk. Where I live, it's very beautiful. There are all these ponds with ducks. And so I just go and I just take a little walk to the swimming pool with my daughter, or I just take a walk around the pool, or I meditate. That also helps me a lot, okay? Number 3, you have to eat better, okay? I'm no health expert, but if you eat a ton of junk food and candy, you already know you should quit poisoning your body, right? Eat fresh things. And here's a little practical tip for you. If I have little time to think of or prep decent food for myself, I go and I grab healthy smoothies from the health store around the corner from me because I know they are at least better for me than chomping down on candy bars, right? So if I'm on the go, and I'm on the go constantly because I drive between my different business locations, I see clients, I have meetings with my instructors, so I'm constantly on the go from here to there and going to pick up my daughter and making sure everyone has what they need. And so I drive around a lot and I'm in between many locations a lot in my area. So sometimes I just don't have time to prep food or even take an hour lunch break. And what I do is I quickly stop at the local health store and I just grab a smoothie. And I know that if I sip on that smoothie, at least it is better for me than just munching down on a burger and chips every day or just eating junk, right? Because we start eating junk if we don't pay attention to that. So that has really helped me. And that is just a tip for me. You can also make your own at home, of course. So you have to eat something that provides you with actual nutrition instead of just scarfing down carbs. That's one thing. I eat a lot of eggs and fish as well. When I do have time to cook, I do eat a lot of eggs and fish because I have found that eggs and fish are very rich in nutrients and they have omega-3s, which are great for my brain. And I take good quality vitamin supplements in higher than normal dosages. If you lead a very stressful life, you need vitamin supplements, but you need to take them in higher dosages. And I would encourage you, I can't go into it right now, but I have researched this for myself. You need to not only know which vitamins to take and how much of them to take every day, but you need to know what kind of form you need to take them in. For instance, I'll use one quick example and then move on. I know I have to take vitamin C in high doses, and I know I have to take it in the form of ascorbic acid because those are the most healthy vitamin C. And I know that the recommended daily dose that they say you should take, I know that that's way too low. So I take 3 or 4 times that amount because vitamin C actually keeps your body disease-free. There's actual studies that have been done that suggests that it may actually also play a role in preventing certain cancers. Vitamin C is incredibly important to your body, but you need to talk to your doctor. You need to do your own research. Don't go by what I say. I'm not an expert. Just want to put that in there as a disclaimer. But that's what I have studied out for myself. That's what I'm doing, and it really works for me. You need to find out what works for you, but you cannot go without good nutrition, because if you put garbage into your body, you will get garbage out of your body, and you just need to understand that, okay? Number 4, you have to get rid of or deal with anything and anyone toxic in your life as best as you can. Toxic people are destructive, and toxic behaviors or a toxic culture in your business can be devastating and make it miserable for you to be in your own business. Boundaries are critical. Once again, go listen to some of our previous episodes on boundaries. Your clients, employees, contractors, and family have to respect you and support you. You are not there to just be a money machine or a scapegoat for everyone and everything. You have to adjust your team if you must, and you have to minimize the influence of friends and family over you in your business if you must, okay? It can be a wonderful blessing for your family to work with you in your business, or it can be a terrible curse. Only you will know what I'm talking about, and if that is the case. And you need to adjust your team and your support system if you need to, okay? Get rid of toxic people as far as you can, or at least get rid of their influence. And if there's toxic things going on in your company, practices that are unethical, or people and things that are just really messing up your company culture, those are things that can add a lot of stress to your life and can cause you endurance fatigue. You need to look at those and you need to address them. Do not be afraid to address it, okay? Number 5, you have to recalibrate your business to ensure that you retain your passion. Get back to basics and get back to your roots. Remember why you started doing it in the first place, and tap deep into your creative force to rekindle that passion and zeal that you originally had. Start cutting down on projects and clients who waste your time and who cause you only stress and drama, but they aren't really profitable. So recalibrate, okay? And then, final little tip for part 2 of our show today. The only way to prevent a lot of the above is to never let things get that out of hand in the first place, okay? These things that we've just discussed in part 1 and 2, if you can recognize these signs of endurance fatigue, and if you can go through the processes of addressing endurance fatigue as quickly and as effectively as you can through using some of the tips I've given you today, if you can do that, you are actually going to be able to prevent a lot of this. You are going to start recognizing the signs, and you're not going to be so bogged down by this in future. Okay, so that concludes part 3 of our show. Okay, and part 2 of our show, excuse me. And so in part 3 of our show, we're just going to do a quick few minutes on how to remain free from endurance fatigue, right? You want to know what it is, you want to recognize it, then you want to prevent it or address it, right? But then you want to remain free from it. So we're going to look at that in part 3 of our show today.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a fire. And now we return to our show with your host, Avianne.
And we are back with part 3 of our show today, Your Creative Force, episode 16, Overcoming Endurance Fatigue. Part 3 of our show is going to be a really quick one today, because I just want to conclude by talking a bit about how we remain free from endurance fatigue. You will need to reconsider, recalibrate, and repeat certain processes and certain analyses around the points that I mentioned in part 1 and 2 of the show from time to time, right? One thing you need to realize is that endurance fatigue, because it creeps up on people, right? It is something you are going to have to deal with on a regular basis. You're going to have to sit down with yourself and your trusted psychics from time to time, and you're going to have to ask these these questions and take a hard look at this from time to time. Do I need to recalibrate my business? Is there a way to minimize stress? Can I actually get a grip on certain things that are bothering me in my business, so that the more your business grows, the more effective you can also become, and the more you can learn to deal with the stress and to address things as they happen and not wait until they become massive problems. The thing with any business, it's like a family in that regard. If there are issues and problems that you simply ignore because you're not paying attention or because you don't know how to tackle them, usually they just start spinning out of control and they just start begging for your attention more and more. And it just gets harder and harder. So the faster you recognize these things that we've spoken about in part 1 and 2 of our show today, the quicker you address them, the better for you. And that is how you are going to remain free from endurance fatigue, is by even when you're not experiencing, and especially when you are in a place where you're not experiencing endurance fatigue. If you haven't experienced this yet in your business, or you've overcome it and you're now at a place in your business where you're not bogged down by this anymore, that is the time when you need to look at these things, right? You need to look at your company culture. You need to look at the toxic things that are going on in your business so that you address them from a place of strength and not a place of defeat. Okay, that's very, very important. Entrepreneurs tend to zone in so intensely on their pursuits that we become myopic really fast. So you have to build a trusted circle who can keep you accountable and focused on the right things, who will support you instead of adding to the weight that you carry. If you have to quit a certain pursuit in lieu of another that is more healthy and more aligned with your creative force, then do not feel ashamed or guilty. You didn't fail. You are doing so much better than you think. I can tell you from my own experience and from what's currently happening in my journey that the entrepreneurial journey is not exactly cast in stone. I have a friend who's an engineer who developed a really sophisticated piece of equipment in the dental industry. I'll just use him as an example. And this piece of equipment is very difficult to create. It's very expensive to make, and it sells for an astronomical amount of money. Now, he has to really be on top of his game. He needs to go through a lot of legal and practical moving parts just to be able to bring this thing to market. And he did that and he's doing okay. But now he has to do kind of like a newer, upgraded version of this thing. And it was just about taking him out, dealing with all this. So what he ended up doing is, before he actually just poured himself into this thing, he actually started dealing with selling simpler products and making that something he can easily pull off and gives him a lot of profit. And then he actually has less stress, and then he can focus his attention on the more complex things to do them successfully. So that's just a little example of this. And then don't feel guilty or ashamed about anything in your journey. These things are totally normal, okay? I want to leave you guys with that today. I hope you've learned a lot. I'm going to love and leave you with part 3. I told you this was going to be a short one, with our quote of the day from the American actress Layla Lauren. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correct. She said, "Professional creativity requires more than inspiration, talent, and discipline. It requires an endurance that few are aware of and even fewer have." Have a great time until I can speak with you guys again.
Talent is a flame, genius a fire. Visit us at artbyavian.com. Tune in next time as we explore your creative force. Thank you for listening.